Welcome to the Budget Finance Committee meeting. The agenda tonight is fairly straightforward. Tonight's the night that we'll vote to make the recommendations on the Selectmen's warrant articles. But first order of business is to accept the minutes from the last meeting which were sent out. Any changes or corrections?
I'll move the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll get, I guess, first thing we'll do is ask Don just to highlight if there were any changes and what they were.
Yes, thank you, Rolf. Since the last time we were together on February 22nd, the Board of Selectmen have met, reviewed the budget on March 8th. There were some small changes. The administration account is $2,400 less than the draft budget that was presented to you, and this is due to two selectmen foregoing their monthly stipends. What this does is reduces the gross budget to $3,645,536. So that's $2,433 less than the gross budget that was presented in FY 10-11. Since the meeting on the 22nd, the town also got final tax assessment numbers from Cumberland County. That assessment is $186 more than what we had expected. So the total appropriation for Cumberland County is now $589,325, or an increase of $44,379. That's 8.14% over last year. The estimated non-property tax revenue is projected to be $1,503,006. This takes into account the usage of $88,406 from undesignated fund balance. This is some $40,808 less than last year, or 32%. The proposed net budget, using these figures that I just presented, is currently $2,400 under the LD1 levy limit as calculated by contract assessor Mike O'Donnell. So that was the budget that was approved by the Board of Selectmen on March 8th.
Any general questions first?
That's supposed to be up here.
Paul?
I assume since we have 3A written across,
This is supposed to be up here.
this version of the warrant articles, this is, we're working on the same document. 3A is the document we're working on.
Right.
328.
Or 3A.
3/8 is the date that the selectmen met on that. So that's the date that's on the draft that we have.
Yeah.
So then those few changes there.
Right. Also, Joe just pointed out to me, I think you all got the annual budget town warrant. There's a numbering issue here. Naturally, the election of the moderator's up top, but we'll correct that. I don't know, Louise? It's been done. Well, this one here we got today, I think that was in your absence because Danielle just grabbed one off the Z drive for us. Okay, so it's been fixed. One less problem. Okay.
So we get to elect a moderator. Good.
All right. Well, okay.
All right. Any other general questions first? We'll get into it then. First is to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen on behalf of the town to sell and dispose of any property acquired by the town for non-payment of taxes pursuant to the policy adopted by the selectmen, as may be amended from time to time. The policy will remain consistent with the state statutes and law, and in all cases, conveyance to be made by municipal quitclaim deed. Selectmen recommend adoption of this article.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Excuse me, who seconded that motion? Thank you.
Peter. Next is to see what date taxes will be due and to set an interest rate for unpaid amounts. Selectmen recommend the first half to be due October 31st, 2011, and the second half to be due April 30th, 2012, with interest at 7% on any unpaid balances. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Carried. see if the town will vote to set an interest rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes at 7% for the fiscal year. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of town-owned property, personal property with a value not to exceed $35,000. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? In favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to borrow from or appropriate from fund balance surplus as deemed advisable to meet the unanticipated needs of the community that occur during the fiscal year. Selectmen recommend an amount not over $75,000.
Motion to recommend an amount not over $75,000.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. See if the town will authorize the selectmen for the fiscal year 2011-12 to transfer funds between appropriation accounts as long as the grand total of all appropriations is not exceeded. Any such transfers to be approved only at a properly called public meeting of the selectmen. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Carried. To see if the town will vote to authorize the use of town employees and/or town-owned equipment or independent contractors hired by the town for maintenance on private roads in special and certain circumstances where in the public interest. Note of explanation. 2 examples of use of town employees and equipment may be necessary for A, tying in work done on a public road that intersects a private road. B, plowing snow on private roads to clear way for emergency response apparatus. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. To see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments of taxes not yet committed pursuant to 36 MRSA subsection 506. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Carried. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $177,568 from the tax increment of Pipeline Route 302 Tax Increment Financing District for the fiscal year 2011-12 projects proposed in the Tax Increment Financing District Development Plan Program. Note included in these are the Raymond Casco Historical Society and the Raymond Waterways Association Milfoil Program. Selectmen recommended adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion?
Just, can you refresh my memory on why there was no funding for Sherry Gagnon? Why it was removed, was it removed from the TIF? Or was it, no,
It was moved
removed?
back to the Parks account.
Okay.
There's some things around here a little bit. Moved back to the Parks account in 2011-12.
Okay.
Yeah.
To
We
be
have a
permanent,
little bit less capacity in the TIF than we have had.
and we have the flexibility to move back and forth?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can move things that are TIF qualified into the TIF account, and certainly you can move things out into the general government budget as you need to.
And back and forth?
And back and
if needed-
forth.
If needed, okay.
If needed, and we have had, with the demise of Chipco and Bedtech, we've had some setbacks in the TIF district value.
Other discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $470,945 for the administration account. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $56,287,000 for the assessing account. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion. Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $28,253 for the town hall account. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $452,982 for the insurance account. Selectmen recommend adoption of the article.
Motion to recommend.
Your second?
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,000 for the general assistance account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $165,000 for the technology department account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,894 for the community development account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $578,196 for the fire rescue department account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? We haven't lost you yet, have we, Louise? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $14,587,000 for the animal control account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $19,330 for the infrastructure account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $607,981 for the public works account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion?
Yes, please. Did we at one point in time discuss increasing that for summer help for flaggers? We have decided not to do that.
There was a vote taken, and it came out 3-2 not to do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, it is for your information, it is within our purview to recommend a different amount, be that higher or lower.
After hearing Nate's discussion last time, I think there is a justifiable need for him to have additional summer help, whether it comes in the form of flaggers or lawn mowers or whatever it might be. I think he needs that kind of help. I'm also not sure this is the time to do it, but I think his next year's budget ought to include that, ought to include a number for that. That being said, I will not change this number. I will not recommend a change.
Other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $467,205 for the solid waste account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,112,000 for the cemetery account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? No. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,197,000 for the Parks and Recreation account. Included are contract services of $6,697,000 or $6,697, 35 for contract services, $3,500 for materials, maintenance, and equipment, $2,000 for the Raymond Rattler Snowmobile Club, $1,000 for the Raymond baseball softball, and $2,000 for Agawam mowing and soccer. The Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 or $30,900 for the Raymond Village Library. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? To see whether the town will vote to carry forward any existing fund balances in the capital improvement program account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $675,667 for the capital improvement account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $589,325 for the county tax account. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Discussion? I'm not gonna do-
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the total sum of $1,503,006 from estimated non-property tax revenues to reduce the property tax commitment, together with all categories of funds that may be available from the federal government and any other sources. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? None? To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to accept or reject grants, donations, and/or gifts of money to the town of Raymond, and to expend monies donated for specific purposes. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. Discussion? In favor? Opposed? None. See if the town will vote to accept certain state funds as provided by the Maine State Legislature during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2011, and any other funds provided by any other entity, including but not limited to municipal revenue sharing, local road assistance, emergency management assistance, snowmobile registration money, tree growth reimbursement, general assistance reimbursement, veterans exemption reimbursements, state grants or other funds. Selectmen recommend adoption.
Motion to recommend.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? The other thing that we have, it's not on the warrant at this point, but there's a warrant article that is to be voted on by the select board, which will read, to see if the town will vote to establish a road improvement study committee to evaluate the current condition of the Raymond's public road system and to make recommendations for financial strategies to achieve necessary capital improvement work. The committee would investigate the use of long and short-term construction bonds, annual capital improvement funding, and any other funding mechanisms available. I say that the select board has not voted on this yet, but what I'm recommending is we take a vote on it provisional to them having their vote. That way we don't have to come back and have a separate vote just to vote on that. If the select board does not approve it, then it just goes away anyway.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Discussion?
What exactly are we approving? We're not approving a dollar amount.
No. No, what the intent behind this is to take us from the discussions we've been dancing around on the whole road situation for the last couple of years and put it into a committee to come back and say, here's what the conditions are, here's what the recommendations on going forth, and here's where the financial hit is going to be, and here's some potential financing ways to get there. From there, then the select board would look at that, the budget committee would look at financial applications, and ultimately it would go to the town for votes, but it's to kind of take it that next level from being talked about to kind of force putting something on paper.
This actually, just by way of a little background on the part that you left out, which I think is important, is it came about as a result of a discussion between Rolf and me, and it was something that Rolf had suggested so that we don't, spend another year kind of spinning our wheels on it. And so we have, it always seems like we get to budget time and we're in crunch time, and so this would be a committee that could work throughout the year and come up with a set of recommendations, some strategies, and then we could have a full and complete discussion about that. So I thought that was a great idea. I talked to Joe about it. Joe liked the idea, drafted this up, and it just hasn't got to the selectmen yet, because I think it came about after the selectmen's last meeting. So that's kind of how it came about. Rolf's idea. To give Rolf the credit.
Yeah, remember last year we took an advisory vote on a $6 million bond, and it was too close either way. We just said, okay, it's time to really figure out how we're going to fund road improvement.
Isn't there a standing road survey or something like
Yes.
that? Is this to enhance that product? Or?
No, that product is right now, I have a note here from my secretary. It says, be sure to mention that Nathan is now currently working with Elisa to update the road maintenance map and to include the data from the original road study. So that's happening under the GIS program. That'll happen concurrently. We're in full swing with getting all of our data sets into that system and all of our information updated. And so that road study still exists, it's just being updated. But that would be something the committee would consider, I'm sure. They would look at that to try to find the areas of priority. And then from there, you could get the dollars, and then from the dollars, you would come back to what's the long-term financial strategy? How do you address the capital needs with the resources that we have available, long and short-term bonding and other mechanisms we might have. Other mechanisms means intergovernmental revenue, which I don't know if we're going to have much of that, but that's the other mechanism.
For something they call it.
Our money or someone else's money? Probably be our money.
Is this the Q&A session on
Any topic we want at this point, or are we still on the road?
Well, we're on this right now, because this is the topic that's on the table right now.
On the table, we haven't yet voted.
Yeah, because we have a motion and it was seconded, so.
Right, this is going to go on the agenda next time.
Other questions and discussion on this article? Those in favor? Opposed? None? Now we can open it to any old business or new business, or general questions if you have.
I have a general question. It applies to the county tax, which is based upon essentially the state valuation. I asked a question about that, found something on the Maine Revenue Services website which gave a very succinct explanation of how the state valuation is determined. And it turns out the county uses that to allocate their operating expenses. In that top summary that I found, it said that they make field audits annually. I was wondering if, since Raymond's increase seems to stand out, which is why we got such a large increase in the county tax this time around, if that had been examined by anyone to see that it makes sense. Now and then the state does make mistakes, as we've seen from DHHS. I don't think this rises to that level of dollars, but I just wondered if anybody that could possibly understand that gobbledygook could check to see that we weren't being overcharged.
They would do their evaluation based upon their standardized methods, but if the question is, could we, send a letter of concern, objection, something like that, I think you could. I don't think that you're going to change the way that they evaluate the town under their formulas, but if you were concerned about it, I'd say a letter of concerns indicate that it does stand out, as you point out, amongst Cumberland County communities. It seems to be an outlier with respect to where things are going. That's your position. You wrote to me about that and indicated you didn't see the valuation growth around the town that they would say they saw, but of course it was over a period of time that may not be the current bill season. But certainly I think you could ask them to, when they do their evaluation, to look at that, reevaluate that.
I thought perhaps ask them, because you can make an appeal to the process if you want, and they would re-examine perhaps Raymond. That's all I was getting at.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to I would yield to more experienced people, whether or not there's anything to be gained from it. There may not be, most likely wouldn't be, but just to make sure that they know we're keeping our eye on it.
I think it's worth a letter to the state planning office that does the state valuations and at least say, hey, you want to double check the numbers on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Don will draft something up and we'll send it off.
The sales numbers are, as they explained in that document, 2 years old. But even if you look back, that's since I've been in Raymond, and sales have been depressed everywhere. Of course, when something sells in Raymond, if it happens to be on the lakes, why, then you get some big numbers. But just thought it'd be worth mentioning.
Yep.
I hate to cause you more work, Don.
Oh, no. I enjoy writing letters. That's what I do. I like doing that.
You do a fine job of it.
Thank you.
Dana,
So I'll do that.
question?
Dana Desjardins, River Road, 64 River Road. We had that same problem, Peter, in my former hometown. We wrote a letter. My brother was on the select board. He wrote a letter to the state planning office, and they sort of laughed it off. If you want to change things at that level, you have to get the legislature to change it. State planning board's not going to do anything about it.
We'll make sure we CC our state rep and our state senator.
Other questions or issues?
Sure.
Yes, Bob?
I guess I want to take this opportunity to thank Don and his staff for putting this budget together. It's the 5th year now, I believe, that we've had a flat budget on the municipal side. And for the gains that we're making throughout our departments, and to stay flat is commendable and made my job easier in making decisions on this board. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that on behalf of the department heads. That I think they did do a really good job doing that. And I also would thank the Board of Selectmen. It's very much an improved process when you have goals and objectives, which we do each year, that help to guide us. And but we are hopeful at some point that we're going to see a turnaround in the economy, that we're going to see a return to growth, and hopefully we can address some long-standing needs, the roads most specifically, that definitely need attention. And so have hopefully this new panel in the year ahead to look at that. And there are other capital needs that certainly could be addressed in the town. But for right now, I think the Board of Selectmen thinks the most prudent thing to do is to keep the taxes as low as possible. That's been the objective now 5 years. The department heads, employees all understand that, and working together as a team, elected, appointed officials, we've been able to do it. So, and you're all a part of that as well, and we thank you for that. And it's not what we'd like to see. We'd like to see growth and development. We'd like to see some positive movement in the economy, but I think it's where we need to be right now. Again.
Other questions or issues? At this point, there's nothing that I see that would cause us to have to come back together before the annual meeting, but if anything does change, then I'll get a hold of you and we'll schedule a meeting for that. But I thank you for your time and your considerations. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.